Good morning. Today we're going to work on finding the volume of rectangular prisms. All right, our essential question is, how do you find the volume of a rectangular prism? It is simple. We use the formula volume is equal to length times the width times the height. It's that simple. It's a three-dimensional figure like you see here, a rectangular prism. It's made up of 6 faces. So you have 2 sides, one for the front, one for the back, and one for the top and the bottom. 6 sides. And it is a measure of the amount of space inside the figure. So indeed, when we're talking about volume, we're looking for how much space is in the figure. Just like when you saw in the vocabulary video, as the water was filling up that rectangular prism, we were looking for the space inside. All right, so it's 3 dimensionals, this figure. So we're looking for 3 numbers. That's what's going to give us our space inside the figure in terms of cubic yards. So we have a length of 9, a width of 7, and it is 5 yards high. So it'd be 9 times 7 times 5. That's going to give us the volume. And of course, you get to use your calculator for this. So 9 times 7, you know, would be 63. 63 times 5 is going to bring you to 315, and that would be measured in yards, and it's cubic yards. Because when we're talking about 3-dimensional figures, we want to know how many cubics, so how many cubes of that size, of that measure, in this case yards, it will take to fill up that figure. All right, it's that simple. We have 2 more examples, so let's get to it. This time we have a rectangular prism with the measurements of 3 feet, 6 feet, and 12 feet. Again, to find its volume, volume is equal to length times width times height. So when you put the letters next to each other, or variables next to each other, you know that simply means to multiply. All right, so length, it looks like it's 3. It is 6 wide and 12 high. It doesn't matter what order you put these numbers because we know multiplication is commutative. So you can change the order up and you'll still get the same answer. So 3 times 6 gives us 18. So 18 times 12 will give us 216. And this is measured in feet. So it's cubic feet or feet cubed. We use the 3 again as a way to say cubed. My 3 is kind of messy. Oh, gonna have to fix that up with some whiteout later. All right, and then next, our final one. We have the following rectangular prism. It is 8 yards long, 5 3/4. Oh no, 2.5. Here it is. 2.5 yards wide and 5 3/4 yards high. So again, it's just the same thing. It would be volume is equal to length times width times height. So again, we just plug in our numbers. We have 8 times 2.5 times 5 3/4. So this time we're working with fractions, and hopefully you remember when you're working with multiplying fractions that you need to change them to their improper fractions. And that's a quick step, multiply, add. So you multiply and add. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, 5 halves. And then 5 times 4 is 20 plus 3, 23 fourths. And then we make this a fraction by putting it over 1, and we're ready to multiply. All right, I like to, of course, look at 4 common factors to take out. And I know that 4 and 8 have a common factor of 4. So 4 divided by 4 leaves me with 1. 8 divided by 4 leaves me with 2. And then continuing this process, I see 2's that we can match up together here in the denominator and the numerator. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm left with just 1 times 5 times 23 on the top, which brings me to 115. And on the bottom, I have just 1 times 1 times 1. Made it so easy. So 115 over 1, so answer would be 115. And we're measuring in yards, so yards cubed or cubic yards. Easy peasy. Now, if you were one of my students that didn't like that process right now, you're still not comfortable with taking out your common factors, that's okay. You would have had 8 over 1 times 5 halves times 23 fourths. And of course, you could have multiplied across the top. 8 times 5 times 23. You had your calculators. You got 920 divided by 8. And that still would have gotten you back to 115 yards cubed. All right, that's the end of this video. Go ahead and do the practice problem.